Hey, Riddle here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a subscriber. I really appreciate it. So this video is going to be long, so if you have short attention span, you might want to work on that. You know, it's people don't realize it's actually some kind of direct effect of social programming now with what we have going on with our addiction to social media. The irony of that being that you're here right now and I'm benefiting from you being connected to my YouTube channel. But given the power of technology and how it is changing our brains and changing our society, like always, you can use it for good or you can use it for nothing. And I'm going to give you one example. So now we have these small, compact, endless sources of information right in the tip of our hands. But how often have you ever been in a crowd of people and there was a question that came up, and instead of somebody just Googling it and sharing the information with everyone, or a vocabulary word, everyone just goes, oh, duh. But if it was something like a farce of a video or Hollywood gossip or some stupid TikTok thing, they'd be all over it. And what I'm trying to point out and not judge, but it's just the natural human inclination to be lazy and to take the easy way. And which would be fine if it was benign, but it's not benign because they're showing that it's problem solving that has made the human brain over all the other primates grow in the way of intelligence these hundreds of thousands of years that we have been evolving. So now that so many of our problems are solved for us and we don't have to think a lot on a day-to-day basis because we live in this little track and we live in these little habits and all of our thoughts are thought for us, we are literally people are becoming less intelligent, which is frightening. So how do you work around this? How do you work against the propensity to lower your intelligence and not problem solve? Well, use technology for the right reasons. Don't readily accept everything you hear, and really don't readily accept everything you were taught. Now, this is really going to offend, frighten, but again, critical thinking. And I do a lot of my critical thinking from three angles. First angle, life experience. If I had a personal experience, and I've had more than most people, because I didn't have the luxury of a cozy childhood. I didn't have the luxury of a supportive family. So I was out on my own at a young age, and surviving was not an option for me. I was determined to thrive, and I was determined to make up all the time that I lost in my childhood living under, stress and abuse. So where most people put all of their cards on getting an education and getting the job and getting in the system headed towards the golden carrot of retirement, I've spent most of my life being an artist and traveling and healing. So I could be a well-adjusted person at the end of my life who lived in peace and could teach and share peace with other people. The traditional template was never one that worked for me because I've always been a critical thinker. Even as a child in the church, I always had questions that couldn't be answered by the priests and by authority. And I really understood that at a young age as a flaw or a problem in blind faith. Blind faith is a trap and it's a manipulation. So, that being said, there's a lot going on right now, and like half the nation is blindly supporting something just to be right. So I recently made the choice to lose a dear friendship. And this is another thing you have to look at with Donald Trump, is how can he be what he represents, what he does, a good thing, if it has separated and destroyed so many relationships? Never in American history, except the Civil War and slavery. And take note of that. So slavery, although there is a small percentage of people that probably would still want slaves because it's a very primitive human thing to want control and that greedy behavior, most of us know at this point that slavery is a horrible thing. Most of us are aware at this point that we would never want to be enslaved. And it's as simple as that, really. Do unto others, Christians. So I recently chose to end a friendship, a 25-year-old friendship with someone, because no matter what I presented to them in the way of what was happening with the president's lying, with the president's basically creating his own reality and threatening our health, safety, and democracy, always focusing on his ego and the big win versus the hundreds of thousands of people that are dying right now. And I also, there's some human rights issues, and I mean, it's just endless. We've never experienced this type of chaos before. And this, ironically, lack of respect for the traditional American democracy. And here are all these people that think they're right, literally right-winged, or right-wing Christians, or traditionalists that have been brainwashed. And you can Google the brainwash thing and why I'm saying brainwashed, because you can look at a lot of the behavior that's happening right now, and it literally parallels when in human history dictators have been able to get large populations of people to go against what they knew was right. Like Hitler. We look back and judge those Germans. How could they have done that? Oh, how could they have done that? Well, look at America right now. Look at America, because you have these people that supposedly are so traditional, and they tell their kids not to lie, and they tell their kids not to cheat, they tell their kids to follow the rules, and yet they're supporting someone who has consistently, like 30 or 40,000 times, just that we know of, done the opposite of everything that we are supposed to do. We're not supposed to lie. We're supposed to follow the rules. We have to pay our taxes. We have to accept reality and accept defeat when we legally lose something. I mean, let me give you a simple example. You get a bill in the mail, a gas bill, and it's higher than usual. What would happen if all of us just called the gas company and just started arguing with them about the cost and basically just wouldn't pay it? Like, we're going to tell you how much we're going to pay because I'm this person, and this is, my reality is that I believe that we only use this much gas, and it's a conspiracy that you say, even though I have a meter that measures accurately how much my utility has used, there's a conspiracy, because that is not true, because I know what truth is, and what my truth is basically what the truth is going to be. Do you understand how crazy this is? Do you understand the chaos that this creates, the chaos that this could ensue if that becomes the new norm? Because that's what a leader is supposed to be. They set an example, and sadly, Many people that don't have the ability to critically think and don't have a strong core moral compass are going to follow that example. And we are going to be living like barbarians. Barbarians. And you're seeing it already with the increase in violence and the increase of people just doing what the hell they want to do. Because that's what people love about him. They just love him because he speaks his mind and says what he wants going to say and does what he wants to do. Well, you know, there's two types of people that don't think before they speak. Children and the mentally ill. Just saying. And I have nothing wrong with the two-party system. I think we should have more options, honestly. I have no problem with Republicans, but I do have a problem with liars, and I do have a problem with narcissists, and I do have a problem with what's happening right now. Because what people don't seem to care is that the world is watching our so-called democracy, and they are looking in just utter... They're just shocked. They're shocked. We're the laughing stock of the world. And they're also looking at us with both opportunity and terror. Because we're so weak right now because of these shenanigans that are being allowed to perpetuate. And no one seems to care because just like the leader, special interests, just what I want. Just what I want, just what I want. Not what's good for the best of the country, not what's good for the best of the people, not addressing the pandemic. This young woman does, she's a mortician, and she does videos about death, everything about death you can imagine. And you can find her video, maybe I'll post it below. She did a video about the plague in San Francisco in 1905, 1906. Believe it or not, the plague made its way over, and there was a huge problem with it in San Francisco just before the huge earthquake in 1906 and a little bit after that. But the funny thing is that she found historically is all the same shit was going on. Special interests, people who needed to make big money, and politicians not grasping scientific facts, the bigotry, blaming specific cultures, literally to the point that they said that they, as a matter of fact, printed in newspaper, only Chinese people in San Francisco could get this plague. And then the conspiracy theories. They spun all these conspiracy theories when in fact the science was, as we know now, and nothing changes this. Not when it's not convenient for you. Not when it doesn't support your rights not to wear a mask. The fact is, bubonic plague is spread from rats to fleas, from fleas to humans. It's a zoological pathogen. So my point of going on that rant is that humans haven't changed a whole lot. And I often use history to make my decisions about things. When I did a lot of research about the Spanish flu to kind of see how the potential of this would play out and to try to show my friends that were so ignorant and are still ignorant today about the facts of how a pandemic works and that it didn't have to come from a laboratory, that this is kind of a natural occurrence. It happens every so often, and this is how you protect yourself, and this is how the best you can do as a society to survive through it. But how many of those people do you think looked at history and looked at science and were proactive about how to move forward with their lives? Scary. It's scary to me that people cannot use their brains, that they cannot wrestle themselves away from pride, because pride's not power. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And we're going to see that example, we're going to see the effects of pride before true power and true leadership in a really dark, horrible way unfold in front of our eyes right now and in the not too distant future. So here's a little mind bender, and it's going to challenge you. It's going to challenge you. So we have I think there's a strong puritanical / political agenda that is, pushing and trying to manipulate and solidify a lot of laws in this country. And they're laws that don't work for everybody. They work for special interest. They literally take away the rights of the individual, which is what America's actually about. And what's interesting to me is people automatically associate organized religion, especially Christianity, with good. Now, I'm a very good person, but I'm good without God. Meaning, I was raised in the church, but I don't use God to lead me. I don't use God as a crutch. I don't use biblical text because from what I've studied, it is a text that has been misinterpreted and rewritten so many times. It's probably one of the most bastardized texts in human history. And I don't understand how you separate myth from facts. So if I'm looking at this book that people take verbatim, and there are talking snakes, people living in Wales, burning bushes, virgin births. I mean, even if you want to really look at this critically, and this is going to upset a lot of people, even the literal conception of Christ wasn't consensual. It wasn't consensual. So, and in reality, in the Middle East, if a young woman just mysteriously became pregnant when she was married, she would have been murdered. She would have been stoned to death. It would have been a really rare occurrence that she would have, her husband just would have accepted the fact that she said, oh, well, this force came to me and knocked me up and I'm going to have the Son of God. Now, I do believe that Jesus Christ may have existed, and I think he was a radical, amazing human being. But the funny thing is, too, about the Christians is they don't understand, the first thing about their faith. If they really are following the faith and following the teachings of Christ, he was a radical socialist. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a socialist. I believe in capitalism, but I don't believe in sociopathic capitalism when money goes before people and money goes before the protection of our children's future, meaning the environment or human rights. But the fact is, don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite. If you're going to be a Christian, don't say you hate socialism because Christ was an obvious socialist. Just saying. Just don't use that argument against the left. But again, my friend who I had to let go of this friendship with after 25 years, some of the last words he said is that I don't care what Trump does. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I just won't support Biden and his socialism, or she's going to turn the country into socialism. Well, Google that. Actually educate yourself before you buy into just instantly buy into the rhetoric, because on both sides there's rhetoric, of course. On the Republican side, though, it's on steroids. Again, try critical thinking, do your homework. How could Biden ever be a socialist with the amount of money and businesses that he and his family have invested all over the world, including the US. How could you say he's taking money left and right and he's so rich and all this stuff in one breath, and then say he's going to turn the country socialist in another breath? It's illogical. It's illogical. And most people, sadly, holding this box in front of them that has unlimited knowledge, don't even take the time to educate themselves about socialism. They don't even know what socialism is versus communism versus what true capitalism is. Because these are really important factors to understand before you start spewing an opinion. An opinion should be based in fact and followed, and prefaced by critical thinking. You don't just, I think this is one of the things that reality television has, there's a lot of countries that don't allow that kind of garbage, and they don't allow garbagey people on TV. And, you might think that that is oppressive, but it actually protects the people from becoming idiots. Because as soon as reality television, because people think what's on television is normal, and what's on television is what we emulate, and as soon as idiots and pigs started being glamorized through reality television, including Donald Trump, I think that was a huge push towards the dumbing down and the lowering of morality and the lowering of critical thinking here in the United States. Suddenly it became cool to be an idiot. And you saw this also with many of his supporters get this really bad rap. They get this bad rap because they look like stereotypical hicks, rubes. And I think that everyone has value. I think everyone has value in this country. Obviously, from we can't eat without the farmers, and we can't drive around without mechanics, and everyone has value. At the same time, I don't think anyone should prescribe to anything that enforces ignorance. I don't want to be proud to be poor. I don't want to be proud to be stupid. I don't want to be proud to be a bigot. Those aren't things to be proud about. We all as individuals have the ability to self-educate and to take the time to understand what's going on in this world and what's going on with each other. Often, I come to my conclusions about things like socialism because I've taken the time to travel and make friends with and have discussions about socialism with people who live in socialist countries. Imagine that. I don't listen to the crazy banter from frightened, angry people with one motive, and that is to win at any cost, be it cheating, be it violence. That's a dictatorship. No. And let me tell you, because I don't have just one, I have a lot of friends in a lot of different countries. And they don't lose sleep at night worrying about getting sick. If they get sick, they get cancer, something happens to them and they can't work, they're not going to lose everything. They're not going to lose everything. Imagine if we had at least that type of social security, because that's real social security here in this country. And I don't mean giving it away, but affordable health care is not a luxury. It is it's a basic thing that civilized countries put in place so that their people thrive, along with education. Why do you think it is? And I have a direct connection to this also, because many people don't know, because they're caught in these little realities that they've never left that small reality, and they don't understand what really is going on out there, where the corporations and where the big money is, and what's really the power in this country. and what's going on in this country. And one of the things that was fueled by communism and socialism is that they educate their people. And so when you go to a corporation like Apple and you look at the disproportionate amount of high-paying jobs, talent they call it, that go to engineers, why? Why do they bring these qualified people in, highly educated people in from other countries? Because they're still paying them the same amount of money. It's not to save money. They're doing this because Americans are so undereducated. And why are Americans undereducated? Because now the kids can't afford a one-bedroom apartment, a car, health insurance, and to go to school. We're one of the wealthiest nations in the world, and yet we are creating a third world situation where we have the wealthy and the middle class is disappearing quickly, and it's unaffordable to achieve what was normal just 20 years ago. And then you have these elderly people, you have the baby boomers that basically really want people to suffer because they worked so hard to get what they needed. Well, yes, haven't we all? But the fact is, what are the kids' motivation if they can't afford anything and they have no opportunities? If the opportunities have been narrowed so much, unlike the economy and the opportunities that were available 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It is not the same America. So when you talk about making America great again, this is what made America great. Are you ready? After the war, when the soldiers came home, what did America do? What did the government do? They educated them for free. They educated them for either free or practically free. And this is what created the suburbs. This is what created the middle class. This is the root of the history of why we have lawns. Before that, land was a precious thing that was used to grow food. And this is why almost every house had a victory garden, which is where you grew your own food because resources were so slim during the war. But after the war, when the boys came home and they created educations that put them in jobs that for the first time they could afford to save, they could afford to consume, they could afford to invest. That's what made America great. So look at America now. Look at America now. And it's not the same playing field. And the idea of forgiving loans or free education or affordable health care, that's not socialism, dumbasses. That's going back to something we gave our people that made this country great. It's what built the middle class. It was a simple economic structure that created America, the dream of America. So educate yourselves. Look at history before you listen to this utter bullshit and this poison. And even if it wasn't a fact, why do we want people to suffer? People who suffer and people who struggle become bitter. And you're seeing a lot of these people that are supporting madness, who are supporting mythology, who are caught up in conspiracy theories. The science and psychology is out there. And the majority of these people are people that lack opportunity. They're people who are suffering or who have suffered. And now what do they want to do? Well, of course, they don't want to suffer anymore. But the fact is, the last 4 years, I don't think any of their suffering has changed. I don't think anything has changed economically for them, but they really want other people to suffer because they don't have the emotional intelligence to say, wow, I've suffered terribly and I've struggled, and what can we do so, other people don't have to suffer? I thought that's kind of Christian. Isn't that more Christian? And that's what I mean, that I can be good without God because I have intelligence and I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. We were one of the few white families in this neighborhood, and there was consistent violence and there was consistent madness. And, I can't tell you how many times that I'd been attacked and beaten down by, by the black community. But how did I come out of that? Did I come out of that hating black people? No, I didn't. I came out of that understanding what racism was. Another story, my mother, rest her soul, and my father were horrible bigots. They were horrible bigots. They taught us, basically tried to teach us to hate everybody. Hate everybody, mistrust everybody, because you know why? They were poor. And poor people look at resources like we have to protect everything. Everyone's going to take everything from me. It's this weird primitive competition psychologically. So anybody, especially the immigrants, they're going to take all the jobs, right? And, even though ironically, my mother's people came from Poland just 2-3 generations ago. And my father's Native American, half Native American, and still was a raging bigot. And it was so deep, their hatred, that at 19 years old, I literally thought that I had a different color blood in me. I'm sorry, the Jewish people had a different color blood. Jewish people had a different color blood. I didn't even know it was just a religion. And it wasn't until I dated someone who was Jewish at 19, saw how amazing and civilized and educated their family was, that suddenly I had to look at my life and realize I had to question everything I'd ever been taught by my parents. And so that's why I understand the root of bigotry. I understand the root of prejudice. I understand how these people can be sucked into or born into the Proud Boys or the Ku Klux Klan. Because if I would have never been challenged in my life, if I would have never dated someone Jewish, if I would have never had, not had the support of my parents and the abuse and all the crazy that came from that, I probably would have just bought right into it and believed those crazy, dark, limited beliefs that were passed on possibly generationally. And the irony is, it was breaking that spell and breaking that belief system that opened up my mind and my heart to every race of people and every demographic and took me around the world. My parents never pushed education. I never learned a second language, sadly, like most Americans. And I wound up living and going to so many different countries. And if it wasn't for my friends, my Jewish friends, my foreign friends, my gay friends, my everybody friends, I would have had a just shitty life. A crappy, boring, limited life. And years later, I had estranged myself from my parents for over 20 years before my mom passed away. I had this conversation with her because the first thing that she tried to do is go back to that dark place with the hatred and the bigotry. And I told her, I said, sorry, Mom, you can talk that shit with someone else, but I will not entertain this, and I will not allow you to have this conversation with me, because it wasn't my parents that gave me a great life. It was my dear friends of every color, race, and inclination. I'm going to end it there for now because it's a lot and we're at 34 minutes. Think about it. I'm going to have more. This is just the beginning. Thank you for your time. Sadly, I know most of you probably lasted till like 6 minutes, which is really tells you something about your life. Because if you're limiting your thinking and you're limiting your research and you're limiting your attention span to that of a child then that's going to really affect your entire life. I think we all should be focusing right now on trying to listen longer to each other and listen deeply to each other, because it's the only way we're going to heal from this trauma, this societal trauma that we've recently all experienced, not just with politics, but also with the coronavirus. We don't want to go back to that where everyone's all suspicious and hating each other. I think that was kind of what brought on a spiritual level the coronavirus. So please take care of yourself and take care of each other, because I believe how we treat each other on the streets is our ultimate reality. And if you like my channel, please share, like, subscribe. If you have an intelligent comment, please post it below. If it's foolish or crass, don't waste your time. I'm just telling you, you could take those precious minutes and go do whatever turns you on, because they're just going to be removed or erased, or you're going to get embarrassed. So, bye.